Podcast 119. Chris has set me up for something here, and
I'm setting Dave up.
I don't like it. But
Dave's in the hot seat tonight.
since I do it to him all the time with pop quiz questions, he's apparently setting me up tonight. So,
Yes, I
what do you
am.
got?
Yes,
What do
I
you
am.
got? What do you got?
So, Dave
What do
has
you have other than a cup of Swiss Miss?
nothing. I'm setting you up.
All right. What do you say?
Dave has defaulted on a lease and got out of one. Okay.
Defaulted.
He's defaulted. He said, screw this joint, I'm out.
Yes.
So he's currently now looking for another place to hunt. So I thought it would be fun, hypothetically, to throw something at him. And what we're going to talk about is Dave being propertyless, plotless, and clueless. We're going to put him in a scenario and see where Dave would like to kill a bird. Now, what I mean by that is hypothetically, we're going to say Dave's going to go to a piece of property. And first property we're going to put him on is someone's going to invite Dave over and say, "Hey, Dave, I know you don't have a place to hunt. Come on over. We'll hunt here." And they're going to turn him loose on a piece of property, and it has an ag field. Now, so we kind of know what his answer is going to be on this one, but we're going to let him explain. So, Dave, if somebody turns you loose on their property, what things are you going to look for topographically? I don't know, property wise. What things do you look for when you try to set up to kill a bird? I know it's kind of vague, but we'll get into some more stuff.
This is an ag setting.
Yeah, let's say like at the old farm, we had a big chunk of property, and we had a field. You either have a plot there or an ag setting.
Okay. Well, all right. So in an ag situation, turkey hunting. It's turkey hunting, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, let's see. I'm gonna I'm gonna obviously sit on if it's flat land. I'm just gonna be looking for if they have any pine trees. A
Okay.
lot of times, turkeys will roost in those pines, and then they'll fly down into the field. So what I would probably do is probably sneak in there somewhere on the edge, wait till daybreak, listen for gobbles. If I don't hear any, I would probably just set up kind of on the edge of that ag field. I'll be looking for any type of green area, green foliage to set around, but also I would look for any open dirt. If the field was freshly plowed, I'd be looking there because those birds will come out in there, bugging around, sitting there scratching for bugs, and they'll also dust. They'll get down there and they dust in that dirt um, to kind of smother any kind of insects they have on them. That's I guess the primary reason why they do that. But I'd be looking for that. If it's in a hill situation, if there's lots of terrain features, I'd be going up high. I'd be high as a kite, as far as I can, high on a ridge, um, somewhere, because those birds kind of will roost up high like that. Again, I'd be looking for any type of pine situation. For instance, this most recent farm that I gave up, they would always roost back in the back on the ridge top, and then it kind of work their way down a little bit, but then also back up and make their way out to the ag fields. And that's where I killed uh, two turkeys there on the ag field, which that was also looking over a food plot of clover. But it's funny, I had the food plot of clover, but when I shot the two birds there and I cut the crop open, it was full of dandelions, and that happened to us as well on the
Yeah.
old farm. We cut it open. Yes, there was lots of clover in there, but it was lots of dandelions, the heads of the dandelions.
Right.
So if you're going in blind like that, anywhere you have green, lots of dandelions, freshly tilled soil, pine areas, and even if you've had oaks, a lot of times there'll still be acorns left over that they're in there scratching around. Um, that type of situation. That's what I would be looking for.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah, man, I'm a pro turkey hunter.
That's good stuff. Okay. So, scenario number two.
Oh boy.
It's not flat land. You've never been on the property before, obviously, and it's mountainous. There's no ag around, nothing for miles,
No fields.
no fields.
Okay.
What do you look for in that situation?
Well,
Just there's no wrong answers here. We're just racking
yeah.
your brain.
So in that situation, I'd be looking for any type of pines. Um, I'd be looking for pine trees where they roost up in, and any type of semi open areas where there's some deadfalls that have fallen down. There's a little, kind of like a little bit of a runway, where they can roost and then fly down because they need room to fly down. So any area in that timber, it's kind of semi open to where they can roost and then have room to fly down. I'd be looking for that. And then if I'm kind of breaking daylight maybe a little bit, I'd obviously be listening for gobbles. I would probably maybe try like a owl hooter just to see if I hear any gobbling. And then as I'm milling around trying to find something, I'd be looking for scratchings. Any type of scratchings in the leaves, um, and then just kind of finding those open areas up high. If the, like you said, hills and stuff, I'd be going trying to work my way up. Trying to get to the ridge top and set up that way and try to call. I know that kind of worked out in New York. I used to go out there all the time, hunt turkey hunting, and it was kind of a lot of all woods a little bit, and we'd always set up high into the pines, and we'd always, I didn't always kill them, but I was with the guys that were teaching me to turkey hunt, and they would always call the birds into those areas.
Hmm.
Um, that's what I would do.
Okay. Okay. Scenario number three hinges off of number two. You find an area that looks good. You strike up a gobble. You have some birds fly down. You have some birds fly down.
Hmm.
They spooked. They went down into a valley,
Hmm.
rhododendron.
Rhododendron. Yep.
How are you going to hunt these birds now?
Well, um, it's very hard to call a bird back to you. So somehow you have to get ahead of the bird. You have to know which direction that they're going. So if I know that they're down this bottom and they're working their way north, then I need to get around in front of them and call and let them either come to me or get ahead of them and do some light calling. That's what I would do. You have to get ahead of the bird because yes, anything's possible, but it's very difficult, at least from what I've seen, to call the bird back to you. If you got to get ahead of the bird, you know, peak situations, best case scenario, yes, you could sit somewhere and a turkey is going the other way, and then you start calling, and you can call him back. Just
Mhm.
depends how fired up he is, because there's times where you call and they gobble. They'll sit there 200 yards away and gobble their brains out, but won't move. They won't come to
Yeah,
you.
right.
So you have to get ahead of them um, in that type of situation.
Okay. Let's see. What do I want to say? Scenario four.
Oh boy.
Nah, I'm going to make this one easy. Decoys or no decoys.
Ooh.
And if you use a decoy, hens only, jakes only, together, a jake and a hen, or
Hmm. So,
what do you prefer?
yep. So the very first time I killed a turkey by myself, well, let me put it this way. When I went to New York and these guys were teaching me to turkey hunt, all they had was a real fan.
Mm.
They
Mhm.
they they spread it was just a fan itself. They spread it out and then they like super glued it, whatever, and they tied like a stake down the center. So when that's all them guys used. They would stick that thing right in the ground, and they would always run and gun. We would
Mm.
just go all over the place. They'd call. We try to get ahead of the bird. They'd stick that fan in the ground to where we know the bird's coming. They would stick that fan as if the bird is facing away.
Yes.
So that's how they would do that. Now, when I the following year, after learning from these guys, I came home. I hunted this ag farm situation by myself, very first setup. I popped up on the edge of a field and I used a hen and a jake.
Mhm.
Faced them the same direction, hen in front, jake in the back. I called a couple times. This gobbler came in. He literally walked 5 yards next to me, came up behind me, walked 5 yards next to me in this hedgerow, came out in front, and he came up behind this jake as he was trying to fight it, and I shot it.
Mm.
Okay. So that combination worked perfect. At the farm in Ohio, I hunted a lot with Hup Outfitters. I killed two turkeys there, and I used a gobbler. Every time you put that gobbler out, you kill a bird.
Huh.
They would come in, they'd fight it, they'd come in to the gobbler. I went back to my original farm where I shot the first bird from. I put the gobbler out, they got spooked.
Mhm.
The farm me and you hunted, decoys were kind of iffy. We kind of stuck to like a hen, you know. Hen decoy was kind of a good situation. You're not going to really spook much. Um, my farm, the current farm that I just got rid of, I had a hen and a jake, and that's how I shot the two birds there. So in general, I would say 50-50 on decoys. Sometimes they get spooked, sometimes they're not. To play it safe, always go with a hen.
Yeah.
A hen, like feeding hen, or even a hen and a jake. But usually them gobblers, I just had mixed results trying to set up either a fan or a full strutter. Um, it's kind of mixed situation with that.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's hard.
Yeah.
The birds get pressured, and um, I've had so many instances where they would come in and lock on to a decoy and lose
Hmm.
interest and walk off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they just, I don't know if they could tell it's not real, or
Hmm.
they just don't like to play with others. I
Yeah.
don't know. It just,
Yeah.
I've had more, uh, I've had more disappointment using the decoys than I've had success.
Yeah. Now they
I
do
re-
make a visual. They're good to get them in range, close to you. But like when I hunted Florida, I had a lot of would have been North Florida. They came in like a string with just a real fan, just a fan itself. You
yeah,
know, but I think Pennsylvania can't use them, right? It has to be artificial.
correct, correct.
So
Can't even be artificial, really.
no, it can't
Um,
be artificial either.
I
So
mean, the only ones you can use is like if you buy like a Jake decoy that has a displayed attached.
mm,
If it's attached to the decoy itself,
hmm.
um, but yeah, you can't go fanning like you're saying using the fan. Can't do that. and you're not supposed to be using, um, what should I say, real materials
Right.
from a lot, from a dead turkey. You're not supposed to use the feathers or anything to make something. And I know people do, but
Mhm.
as far as I know, though, all that stuff is pretty much outlawed because there's been so many hunting accidents in Pennsylvania, people shooting each other over turkeys.
Mhm. So I
So,
know Ohio, when I went out there you're allowed to uh fan.
mhm,
Like you can hold the fan and sneak up on a
yeah.
turkey. And I was there to get to witness it. Actually, I did it myself. I forgot all about that. I had one and it was a real fan. I have a video on my YouTube channel. Um Jeremy from Hup Outfitters filmed me. But I snuck through this field behind this fan, came up over top this hill, and this bird came right up to me. I shot it at like 5 yards. It's right
Mm,
on my YouTube channel. I forgot all about that. Um, but yeah, I mean they can work, but obviously it's situational, just like deer hunting.
yeah.
You know, high pressure areas, grunt tubes and stuff aren't going to work as much
Mhm,
as if in low pressure areas. The same.
yeah.
It's the same with turkey hunting. They get pressured, everybody using decoys, they get spooked, and they get gun shy. So,
Mm.
um, yeah.
Okay. Next question. What have you had the most success using calls? A box, a slate, a mouth call, whatever.
So box call.
Yeah.
I would say overall higher percentage on box calls. Um,
Like long range, I use a box.
yes, I use a
Mid
box.
range, I use the slate because I can still move a little bit.
Yep.
But when they get in tight, it's mouth call only for me, or just silence.
Yes. So I would say high percentage on the box call because of what you just said of locating the bird long distance.
Hmm.
The box call has helped me locate the bird, know there's a bird in the area, but then to narrow it down would be the mouth call.
Hmm.
And or like you said, going silent
Yeah.
because sometimes you can overcall and then kind of ruin it. But sometimes if they're fired up, you can sit there and call 100 times.
Right.
And the more you call, it's like the more you call, the more you know, uh, the more they're coming in. You just have to kind of read how the bird is responding. If he's fired up, you can be fired up. If he's kind of, eh, a little being lazy or whatever, then you kind of have to be a little bit lazy. But like remember me and you were hunting in the ground blind at the old farm. We had those jakes behind us,
Hmm.
and we're sitting there in the box blind, and they're 20 yards behind us, and I'm firing off the box call.
Yeah.
Right there, and they're just fired up, fired up, fired up, fired up. And then so again, you know, 50-50 with uh with calls.
Yeah.
Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Right. Right. So yeah, we kind of put you on the spot tonight, but
I'm
you
bitter
know,
about it.
the only thing I would add to it is just from experience wise.
You ain't
I
got no
mean,
experience.
you pretty
This guy.
much. Yeah, I'm experienced. Uh, you did a pretty good job though. You hit on a bunch of points that I was going to point out if you didn't.
Hmm.
One of the things that I was going to say was, uh, well, most people can hunt flat land on ag circumstances. Um, most people have that figured out. They can sneak in the dark and get on the edge of a field somewhere because they know the birds are going to come out and bug and eat greens and get a good, possibly get a good crack at one. Um, the situation here in PA though is um, like situation two. I put you in on the side of a mountain or something. That's the kind of terrain I hunt. I hunt a big saddle It's flat on top and it drops over both sides. It goes down steep to river, and the birds do, obviously, they roost on top. Um, I do set up, and you hit a good point, any type of openings you can find where they can fly down and strut.
Mhm.
Mainly, I'm not worried about the fly down. It's more the strut.
Mhm.
Um, if they can find an area that they can walk back and forth, and call, I mean, you've got a gold mine if you can find a spot like that, because they'll fly down anywhere. But as long as they can hit an opening and strut around and make that visual, puff up, fan out, and you know, if you got that type of terrain, you've found something good.
Mhm.
Um, Now I've noticed you've had more experience with birds roosting in pine, where I've had more experience of them roosting in hardwood where I'm at. Um, and where they roost at, like I said, is at the top of the hill, and there's natural openings on top, which equates to food, the acorns, the bugs, and all that stuff out there. So they don't roost far from the food. So that being said, they're on top of the hill. They fly down to an opening. They strut there. They can scratch around and eat. If they don't call any hens in, and they do their business.
Mhm.
Um, if they're not in business and there's no hens around, well then they just wander off, and you'll in 100 yards or so you'll hear it gobble down the ridge somewhere. You can hear it going away from you. But when I asked you about what if you spook them, see, the reason I say that is because in PA, like I said, they're so pressured, and if you call too loud, you can spook them. Obviously, if they see movement, you can spook them. Uh, Calling too much can spook them.
Well, if they ever see you, they're definitely getting spooked.
Oh my! See, that's why I gotta wear a face mask, because it ain't pretty. So when they spook, though, they don't ever seem to run across the flat. They head
Mhm.
for the ridge, and they'll stop just for a second and assess the situation, like, do I run down over this hill or do I fly? And if they're really spooked, usually they just sprout wings and fly down into the valley, and then it's almost not worth going after them.
Mhm.
But if they are spooked just enough to run down over the ridge, if you wait if you wait them out for a half hour to an hour, keep silent, just stay put, eventually you give a call after about an hour. If you don't hear anything, they might blast off down below you, which might be enough to tow one up over the hill.
Mhm.
Um, Last year, I had one of those scenarios where there was a fella across the ridge from me down further, and he ended up shooting a bird, and all the birds ran down the ridge towards me, but they ducked down over and went down over the hillside. And it was probably a good hour before they showed back up, and I just waited them out. So it can happen that way. Not all the time will it happen that way. Um, One thing I did want to stress was, it's I shouldn't say impossible, but it's next to impossible to call birds downhill.
Mhm.
I've never, I don't think I've ever called a bird downhill, and I don't think I know that I've ever seen anybody kill a bird that came down a hill.
Yeah. You
So
always hunt the tops, and you always catch them coming uphill.
yeah, like you was saying about getting in front of a bird, like, if you're getting in front of a bird, you need to be higher than the bird
Mhm. Yeah,
normally.
you don't wanna be downhill.
No, no. I mean, I've gone down into those valleys before after those birds, and it was just I was on top, they ran down over, and there's a creek bottom, and then it goes up the other side.
Mhm.
That instance, yes, if they're if you're about the same height, they might come down off of that hill and cross the creek and come onto your side. Technically, I guess that would be calling them downhill, but uh, eventually they will probably come down and cross that creek anyhow. But like I said, it's probably, I shouldn't say it's impossible to call them downhill, but eventually they'll probably come down into that valley again, and they want to be up on top, so they're gonna have to come past you at some point and head back up to that top portion. So if you're really, really patient, which sometimes I'm not, I've ruined some of my own hunts because of impatience. Turkey hunting is tough. It really is.
It can be tough, but it can also be easy.
Sometimes,
Sometimes
sometimes.
it's just
Last
worth
year, I had an easy hunt the day I killed. Now, the 2 weeks before that was tough.
it. Mhm.
I did not have a good 2 weekends there. But the third week I went in and killed the bird, it was easy, but tough at the same time because it was light for an hour and a half or something, and the birds never made a peep.
Mm.
And I was just getting ready in my mind. I was thinking, I got to get out of here. There's stuff I could be doing at home. I'm thinking I might sneak out of here. And just about then, a bird flew down. Now, what had happened was the night before it had rained, and they stayed on the roost extra late, and they didn't call. Um, well, and I just mentioned the one guy had shot one on the first morning, and there's a rental cabin right around that area too. So they see people all the time, and it, in the spring like that, people are starting to camp and all that stuff. So they're seeing people and getting a little bit more tight-lipped, and yeah, it gets real quiet. They start moving around silently, and what I did the morning I killed was I went in, set up, just sat there, never even made a call, never made one call, and there was 3 birds strung out across the horizon, and I didn't even see them. And like I said, I was getting ready to get down. One flew down, was out of range. The second one flew down. It was almost in range, but still questionable. And I didn't have a chance because as soon as they hit the ground, they turned right and started walking the other way. And then finally, the third one flew down right in front of me, and it turned and was walking parallel to me, and I had just enough time to turn the Tacticam on and the hollow sight. I have one of those hollow sights on the top of my guns, and that's another thing. I don't really like reaching for stuff, but
You
uh,
cheated.
I had to I had to touch the Tacticam button, and I had to turn on the sight.
You cheated.
And as soon as the bird came in view, I had exactly like 2 seconds of video. That was it.
You cheated.
Pulled the trigger, and it done.
You cheated.
There is no cheating in turkey hunting.
You know, I haven't had any luck trying to call a turkey like over a creek.
Yeah, that's tough too.
Can't do it.
That is really tough. Unless it's a dry bed,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah. I don't know many people that have unless they fly across.
Right.
I've
Yeah.
I've I've called them across. They flew across, but they don't like walking near water. I don't know why.
Stupid little birds.
Yeah. They're
Don't like
kind of like
water. They don't want to
they
go downhill. Dumb.
yeah. Well, they're like deer too in that instance. Like they won't drink clean water out of a creek or something. They go find some muddy puddle
Hmm.
and suck out of that. It's like
Well,
weird.
thanks to my boy, Mr. Nick. He's gonna let me turkey hunt his property.
Yeah,
And
and you're gonna have to figure it all out.
yeah, well, I did. I consulted there, so
Yeah,
I know the property, but I don't know the turkey hunting. But I have an
right,
idea.
right.
I was just looking at my calendar. I have 15 days before opening day.
Nice.
So I'm going to be at his joint turkey hunting, and we're
So,
going to film it.
so behind the scenes, my thought was we just gave all kind of tips and ideas. So if there's any first timers out there that haven't killed a bird before or never hunted turkey before or whatever, we just filled you full of information
Yeah,
that was free.
free info. Again,
Yep,
we got to start charging for this type of stuff.
I'm telling you. Episode 119.
Yeah,
Where's Dave gonna hunt? At Nick's.
at Nick's, but I have a
And he's got
top
to
secret.
figure it out.
I got a top secret mission coming up.
He's got to figure it out.
Might be back to my roots here coming up soon,
Uh oh.
where it all started.
Uh oh. Dad's backyard.
No, not that back to the roots,
All right. Stay
where
tuned for
might
that information.
back to the roots where Chris was riding a moped,
The hog.
the hog.
The Coleman 200.
Yeah, he was riding a hog through the hunting
Yeah,
property.
we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully that
Yeah,
happens for you.
we'll see.
If it does, we'll be filming all kind of turkey hunting.
Yeah. All right, podcast. What is this? 119.
119.
So we'll see you guys on.
Turkey tips free.
Well, see you on